Radio buttons. Hello everyone. I want to talk to you a little bit about radio buttons for this video. Radio buttons are similar to checkboxes that we spoke about in the last video. Radio buttons are inside a group and the user can choose one option from this group, one option only. So radio buttons are separate from checkboxes with this feature. Right? So, for example, you can use radio buttons on a test application where there's only one answer. The user can choose only one option from the answer. Yeah? You can use radio buttons to get information from the user, sort of like checkboxes. But the checkbox, there's two options for one checkbox, right? It's either checked or unchecked. But for radio buttons, the user has to choose one option from the group. Also, one option is chosen by default. So let's go into Android Studio and see it in practice. All right, so we had a project from the last video. Let's continue on that one. And the radio buttons are under the buttons section. But before we add radio buttons, we will need to add a radio group. And I'll choose radio group from here. Just drag it into the text view. And now we can add radio buttons under the radio group. And I'll add 3 radio buttons here. And now you can see radio buttons, but the other components cannot be seen. So let's check the layout width and the height of the radio buttons. All right, so you can see here that the layout width and height, the radio buttons are wrap content. So we should see the other components normally, but if you check the layout height of the radio group, then you can see it is match parent. So because of this, we cannot see the other components. So let's change it to wrap content, and everything's fine. Now, when I choose wrap content for layout width, the radio buttons will take their place center horizontally. Why? Because we chose gravity of the linear layout center horizontal from before. So what do you suppose we can do with these radio buttons? All right, let's make an example of this. I will give these radio buttons some colors, and when the user chooses a color from the option and clicks the OK button, the background of the main activity color will change to whatever the chosen color is. So let's write the text of the first radio button, green. And for the second one, I'll just write in red. For the last radio button, I'll write yellow. And then when the user clicks OK, the background will change. So let's change the text color of the radio buttons to white. And I can do that from here. Also, I need to give an ID to these radio buttons. So for the first radio button, I'll make the radio button green as an ID. For the second one, I will write radio button red. And for the third one, I'll just write in radio button yellow. Now also, I will define the first radio button to be chosen as a default. And I can do that from here. And I clicked checked option. So after we finish the design, we can then go to the Java side. Now, first of all, we will need to define these radio buttons and the radio group here. And I'll write radio group and give a name, and we'll just call it radio group. And then after that, I'll need to define the radio buttons. So I'll just write in radio button green. when I write radio button, Android Studio imports the necessary class. And then I'll put red for the second button, yellow for the third radio button, and then after that, okay, so I'll need to define IDs for these radio buttons and the radio group. Write in radio group equals find view by ID. But before we continue, I will need to give an ID to the radio group. So we'll go back to the XML page and give it an ID here. And I gave group as the ID. So now I can write r.id.group. And then here, green equals find view by ID r.id.radio button green. And for the red one, red equals find view by ID r.id.radio button red. And lastly for the yellow, yellow equals find view by ID r.id.radio button yellow. Great, so we have now defined our radio buttons. Okay, so what do you want to do after that? So when the user chooses a color and clicks OK, the color of the layout will change, right? Now to do this, I will add a click listener to the OK button. So we've already defined the OK button here. So I will write here OK.set on click listener, new view on click listener. And then inside the onClick method, I will write my conditions. If green dot is checked, and again, before I continue, I will need to give an ID to the linear layout. And I will give linear as the ID. And also I'll need to define this linear layout on the Java side. And I'll write that here, linear layout. And inside the create method, layout equals find view by ID r.id.linear. And now I can change the background color using layout. So I'm going to write here inside the brackets, layout.set background color, and then inside the parenthesis, color.green. And of course, that's my first condition. If the user chooses the green radio button, background color will be green. And then after that, I can write the second condition. Else if red dot is checked, layout dot set background color, color dot red. And for the third condition, else if yellow dot is checked, layout dot set background color, color dot yellow. So far, so good. So let's run it and see if it's working or not. Application opens. So when the green radio button is selected, click OK. Background color is changed to green. And now I'll choose red and click OK. Uh-oh, the background color is red. Shall we go 3 for 3? I choose yellow and the background is yellow. Now, you should see that I can only choose one option on these radio buttons, right? So pretty much the use of radio buttons is easy. And again, I think it's enough for this video. See you in the next one.